because this is the benefit of anchoring in ventral vagal, right? Our physical well-being improves when we regulate our nervous system. We feel an improvement in the way we engage with people and connect with the world. And it starts little. And so I want to create a space in which we can come and celebrate those wins. You can come and say, oh my God, I have such better awareness of my nervous system this week, and I didn't yell at my husband, and I let my toddler have their feelings, and I didn't make it mean anything about me. Hi, and welcome to the Stethoscopes to Swaddles podcast, episode number 106. So today I would like to talk to you kind of as a follow-up to last week's podcast episode where we were talking about just like taming toddler tantrums and, helping your toddler understand what's happening emotionally. And I was thinking to myself, okay, so I'm telling my listeners, hey, teach your toddler, how to understand their feels and, regulate their nervous system. And when I thought about that, I thought about the fact that there's two ways in which we regulate our nervous system. And the first one is self-regulation, which is usually available to us fully around the age of 25. So before 25, we are building this muscle of self-regulation. How we do that, especially when we help our children, is that we use the second aspect of regulation, which is co-regulation. So co-regulation means like you're borrowing somebody else's regulation to regulate yourself. And so as parents, it is so important for us to even understand how to self-regulate so we can help our kids co-regulate, which then brings me to the topic of today, which is using your awareness of polyvagal theory to self-regulate and also help your child co-regulate. First and foremost, what is polyvagal theory? Hey mama, you deserve a life free of overwhelm and burnout. Welcome to the Stethoscopes to Swaddles podcast. I'm your host, life and mindset coach, Shiro Bergbauer. I'm also a wife, mom, and CRNA. This is the podcast for high-achieving mamas in medicine like you and I. Together, we'll learn how to navigate the ups and downs of working motherhood. If you're looking to thrive in your relationships and overcome overwhelm in your motherhood, marriage, and medicine, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Stethoscopes to Swaddles podcast. First and foremost, what is polyvagal theory? Polyvagal theory was developed by Dr. Stephen Porges, and it's a neurobiological theory that basically explains how the autonomic nervous system responds to stress. So according to this theory, the autonomic nervous system is divided into three branches: the sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, and the social engagement systems. And these systems basically work together to regulate how our body responds to stress, and it creates a sense of safety. So one of the things I love about polyvagal theory, and when I even understood polyvagal theory, which is actually very interesting, my podcast producer shared with me a book called Anchored by Deb Dana, who is a protege of Dr. Stephen Porges. And I got into this book and I could not put this book down for many reasons. One of them being like, as a CRNA, as an anesthesia provider, basically, my world is the autonomic nervous system. And for any anesthesia provider, they will tell you that like the solid understanding of how the autonomic nervous system works is really how we decide how we treat our patients as far as, managing their hemodynamics when they're in surgery, managing all the things that are happening to them. And so for me, I geeked out on this stuff because I was like, oh my gosh, if there is a way to actually understand the autonomic nervous system in a way that applies to me and my stress and my nervous system, I want it all. I want to know all of it. And so I dug deep and I've taken some courses. I have just been so passionate about understanding this work and digesting it down and metabolizing to where my audience can understand it and use it practically. So when we think about the sympathetic nervous system, right, that's where the fight or flight response, which is what prepares our body to deal with danger. So this response can be triggered by anything that our body translates as a stressor. It could be work deadlines, it could be family conflict, it could be an argument you just had with your husband, it could be your toddler throwing a fit, it could be traffic, it could be a coworker not coming to get you out on time, it could be the surgeon yelling at you or a patient being inappropriate. So that is what is activating the sympathetic nervous system. On the other hand, the parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for our rest and digest response. So that's how our body relaxes and recovers. And the last one, the social engagement system, is how we bond socially and communicate, which helps us feel connected and supported. And co-regulation is a very important part of polyvagal theory because it's how we interact with the world around us and how we get back into homeostasis. So when we are under stress, our body's response can become very dysregulated. And then that would lead to chronic stress or health problems. So, what I want to share on today's episode is just some ways of understanding the polyvagal theory so we can learn how to regulate our autonomic nervous system and manage our stress effectively, but also use that to help ourselves self-regulate our nervous system. One of the interesting things about, the nervous system, right? Everyday living is a complex experience of autonomic navigation. And one of the things I wanted to point out is trauma and how that impacts our nervous system. And it can be capital T trauma or little t trauma. And trauma is what happens to a person when there is either too much too soon, too much for too long, or not enough for too long. So I want you to think about trauma as basically Goldilocks getting in the house and the porridge was too hot and then the other porridge was too cold and then there was just right. So when it's just right, we are in homeostasis. Obviously that's not a traumatic response. Our autonomic nervous system responds moment to moment to what are often competing needs for us to survive and to be social. So in a state of protection, our goal is survival. Right? So when we are traumatized, the only thing we're focusing on is surviving. What happens is then our system closes up and we're not trying to connect or change. But when we're in a state of connection, right, we're not in trauma, health, growth, and restoration is obviously possible. So going back to the autonomic nervous system and the polyvagal theory, the three organizing principles, according to Dr. Porges, are autonomic hierarchy, neuroception, and co-regulation. So what is autonomic hierarchy? So again, it's going back to that division of the autonomic nervous system, and each has its own set of protective actions. So the dorsal vagal system came first, and that is what brings strategies of us being immobilized, right? So the polyvagal nervous theory basically works on thinking about how the vagus nerve works. So the dorsal vagal system, which is literally from the diaphragm down, is what brings immobilization. The sympathetic nervous system came next, and that's what adds fight or flight. And then the most recent developed, obviously we're talking millions of years, but that offers the ability for safety through connection and social engagement. So when our autonomic nervous system moves into a dysregulated dorsal vagal or sympathetic state, your brain and body become hijacked and they're literally in survival response, right? So when you are dysregulated and you're in dorsal vagal or immobilized, or you are in fight or flight, your child is screaming in the car and you don't know what to do, your brain and body literally become hijacked. But when the ventral vagal system is active, which is diaphragm up, right, our body and brain work together and we can then process what's happening and we can change direction and we're not, freaking out that, we're under attack. The second part of polyvagal theory is neuroception. That is when we can detect what is happening without even being aware, right? And that's how the autonomic nervous system interacts with the world around us. So the autonomic nervous system is this listener that listens inside our body, and it listens outside in the environment and also in the relationships between people. So our neuroception is like the scanning of people's facial expressions, right? How am I feeling inside my body? Okay, am I feeling anxious? Is it like a queasiness in my tummy? So that is what neuroception really is. And this is really the skill set that I believe that we could really spend time building in order for us to learn how to self-regulate. Then co-regulation. Co-regulation, again, we are wired for connection and co-regulation. It's a biological imperative. So it's essential for us to survive. And our ability to self-regulate, again, like what I was talking about with little kids, is built on ongoing experiences of co-regulation. If you didn't receive proper co-regulation as a child, right, it's difficult to then go into self-regulation. When we are co-regulating, we connect with other people and we create a shared sense of safety. And when we have a reliable or co-regulating other person, we then build reciprocity and we build experiences of safety and connection. So for many people, thinking about even lowercase t trauma or uppercase t trauma, this earliest experience of co-regulating with a safe person in a safe place is often missing. And so we may not have the awareness of self-regulation because we didn't co-regulate. So again, just reiterating, the autonomic nervous system, the dorsal vagal is the shutdown system. And when we're in dorsal vagal, we're just going through the motions. We're disconnected. We are just giving up and losing hope. And I think about this, like for me, when I feel like I'm getting into a depression, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to get out of bed. In fact, I wake up in the morning and I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't wait to go back to sleep, right? Because I'm so disconnected and my system is shutting down. And usually it's a cue again from my neuroception to be like, hey, we just need to disconnect. Then the second part of the ladder, obviously, is the sympathetic. And there we are, we are thinking about fight or flight. So we are mobilized. And in fight or flight, we are sensing the environment for threats of danger. Again, the screaming child, the toddler, throwing a tantrum in the grocery store, the siblings fighting in the back of the car as you're driving down the highway and somebody cuts you off and your husband calls you and asks you, did you pick up my dry cleaning? All of that then sends you into fight or flight. And when you're in fight or flight, obviously there's greater conflict in your relationships, right? And so when we think about going up the ladder, right, when we are in sympathetic, it's that gas pedal. Like we are pumping that gas pedal and we are in survival mode, right? So our sympathetic is activated. And when we think about like our ancestors, right, the survival responses that when they were in sympathetic nervous system stimulation is that they were seeking, finding or flocking, and they felt like that was missing. So they were looking for the herd, they were looking for the family and the community, for somebody to comfort them, and that was missing. What we do in this survival response, we are just like trying to survive, right? So we are like mobilizing this like connection, but it's missing, right? So we are literally social survival, trying to be part of a group. The last part, which is what we want to like, get better at, right, is getting into ventral vagal. So in ventral vagal, again, we are connected, we are co-regulated. This is our system of connection. We are connecting and communicating, we're engaging with life, we're going with the flow. So that was a lot of, physiology and all the science, but I really wanted to like first point that out before I kind of talk to you about what happens next, right? Like how do we then start to utilize this theory and understanding of this theory in order for us to self-regulate, in order for us to be able to present ways of co-regulating with our children and helping them create connection. So I think understanding, the branches is great. And if you are in medicine, which is most of the people who are listening to this podcast, you have a basic understanding of the theory, right? So you understand if you are in immobilization, next up the ladder is fight or flight. And what we're trying to build is our awareness of being in ventral vagal, which is we're connected with other people. We are understanding ourselves. We are connected to our body. We know what's going on. And we are meeting the demands of the day, and we're engaging with life. This is where most of us want to be, and this is where we again co-regulate. So the first thing I want to share with you is, how do we even know where we are, right? So we've talked about the hierarchy, but how do we know where we are? So what I want you to think about is, when whatever you're feeling, is to explore these two sentences. And this is something I learned from Deb Dana's book, which I'll link in the show notes. So the first thing we want to understand is, the world is, what is your perception of the world? And then finding the words that describe how you're looking at the world and your place in the world, because then it brings you to the awareness of the beliefs that are stored in the state that you're in. So if you're in sympathetic, the world might feel chaotic, the world might feel confusing. And then the second part of that thought process is, and I am. So what are you feeling? You might experience the world as, you're feeling lost or abandoned or unwelcome, right? And then if you are in ventral vagal safety, right, the world is welcoming and I am feeling connected and safe. So having that awareness, just like to use your internal surveillance system to scan the environment and just ask yourself, like, how am I feeling, right? Because in neuroception, we use what is three streams of awareness. We're looking inside, right, inside of our body, outside, and between. So when we're listening inside, we're tuning into our heartbeat, our breath rhythms, our muscle actions, right? We are also listening inside of our organs, especially our digestive organs. What are we sensing in our tummy? What are we sensing just like in our gut? Outside listening is understanding, like, where am I physically located? Where am I right now? And part of it is like grounding yourself to the awareness of, like, this is where I am. Where am I located? What is my existence in the continuum of space? And then the third stream of awareness is the listening in between, is the way your nervous system is communicating with other systems one-on-one or with a group of people. What I want you to remember is that these systems are always working. They're always running in the background. We can't really 100% like even be aware of neuroception, but it's just important to like tune in and listen. And then when we are wired for connection and co-regulation, we are just finding safety for connection with other people, and we are regulating with them. And if you think about like a little child, when we come into the world, we really can't fend for ourselves and provide for ourselves. So we need other people to care for us. And we can't physically regulate on our own. So naturally, we turn towards our primary caregivers to meet our physical and emotional survival needs. And as we grow, those experiences of co-regulation are what offer a foundation for us to explore our own self-regulation. So if you think about like going back to like handling our children's emotions, right, they're looking for us as a source of co-regulation. So it's so important for us as parents to have that awareness, to tune into ourselves, to even identify like, how am I self-regulating, and also how am I co-regulating with other people? And to remember that in order for us to co-regulate, even as adults, if I want to co-regulate, I have to feel safe with you, and you have to feel safe with me, and then we have to be able to connect with each other. So in order for us to co-regulate with our children, right, they have to feel safe with us, and we have to feel safe with them, which is why I always reiterate, like, when you are noticing that your nervous system is shot, that is not the time to be applying discipline, because you can't find a place to connect with your child in that moment, right? It is safer to create space and distance and self-regulate, and then come help your child to co-regulate. So again, I just like feel like, even though it's very contextual and sciencey, like, I just want you to like first see how our nervous system is looking at the world and connecting with the world around us, in order for us to like even start taking that into the world. One of the most important things that I really wanted to point out too, as far as our ventral vagal circuit, which is our circuit of connection, is the vagal brake. And the vagal brake is literally like a bicycle brake. If you are going downhill too fast and you hold on to the brake, you slow down. So our vagal brake is what slows down our heart rate to a healthy number of beats per minute, which is between 60 to 80 for a healthy person. I mean, if you are super active, it might be a little lower than that. So if we didn't have this vagal brake, like, our heart rate would just like be all over the place, right? So when we utilize our vagal brake, we slow down and also speed up our heart rate to bring the right degree of energy that we need to navigate moment to moment. And our vagal brake also regulates our respiratory rhythm. So it moves in a subtle pattern of release, and it re-engages with every breath cycle. The function of our vagal brake is so that we can have awareness of how we feel and use some of the mobilizing energy of the sympathetic nervous system without us going into fight or flight. So when we release our vagal brake a little bit, we can then sense the energy of the nervous system and we mobilize the system. So how can you use your vagal brake? You can do this either sitting or standing. And first, you just imagine that you have one foot in ventral vagal regulation, and your other foot is in sympathetic mobilization. So if you follow your breath cycle and you inhale, and again, one foot is in sympathetic, you exhale and shift your weight back to the ventral vagal connection. If you're moving through breath cycles, you get a feeling of your vagal brake releasing and re-engaging. As the vagal brake starts to release, then you have access to a range of responses such as feeling engaged, joyful, excited, passionate, playful, attentive, alert, watchful, but you are still regulating the ventral vagal system. If you don't have that ventral vagal brake, you lose your anchor in safety and connection, and then you can move into fight or flight. What I just want you to think about is paying attention when you're feeling flooded. And we've talked about this in previous episodes. When you're feeling flooded, how can you pay attention to where you are as far as your heart rate and, take deep breaths. So we're going to start talking some practical tips of how to take those deep breaths to get into ventral vagal and tune into your nervous system, right? So one of the most important skill sets to learn is mindful breathing. And the reason mindful breathing is important in managing your stress response is that it activates your parasympathetic nervous system, like we're talking about with the ventral vagal brake, and it helps you relax. So what I want you to do when you're in a stressful situation is just put your hand on your chest, right? And just take a few deep breaths and start paying attention 2 times during the day when you feel like you're going into fight or flight, and just give yourself a minute to just take deep breaths mindfully. Because one thing about our respiratory system, it functions with whether or not we are tuning into it. But when we tune into mindful breathing, we slow down ourselves and we allow ourselves to manage our stress. Number 2 tip is connecting with other people. Now, what I want you to be aware of, though, is that if social engagement creates a major fight or flight response for you, what I want you to tune into is what sorts of social engagement work for you. So even though I'm you should connect with other people, it doesn't have to be hanging out with a group of 10 friends. It could be hanging out with one friend, hang out with your partner, right? Because social engagement is a stress regulator, but we also can go into sympathetic if it doesn't feel safe for us, right? Remember, we are trying to get into ventral vagal safety. And so if that doesn't feel safe for you, then be tuning into what social engagement you're engaging in order to feel safe and in order to feel supported. Number 3 is physical activity. What I want you to think about is okay, your toddler is screaming and I'm telling you physical activity. How do you do that? It doesn't have to be exercise. It could be just doing some shaking, just shaking your body and mobilizing your body into just engaging all your muscles, right? It could be making a tight fist and just slowly releasing. But physical activities such as yoga or running or dancing, right? If you can add that to your regular routine, that will help you self-regulate and that will help you stay and bounce back into ventral vagal safety. Number 4 is self-care. I know I talk about self-care here all the time. And I always reiterate, again, it doesn't have to be what social media is telling you your self-care needs to be. Making time for activities that bring you joy. It could be journaling, reading a book, taking a bath, listening to music. Just prioritizing, carving out time for yourself to prioritize your own awareness and self-reflection, right? Making it part of your daily routine. So many of my coaching clients will say, I don't have time for self-care. One of the things I say is, Okay, let's even look at your screen time. How much time are you spending on your phone, texting, scrolling social media? How is that serving you as far as your self care activities? And if it's not, can you maybe make a commitment every time you want to pick up your phone, instead of scrolling social media, you can say, okay, maybe this is the time I'm going to do my mindful breathing, right? Or this, I can go for a 5-minute walk. So again, building that up to help you just like manage that ventral vagal safety and create that for yourself. Number 5 is seeking professional help, right? If you are struggling with chronic stress, chronic anxiety, of course, seek professional help. If you are dealing with depression and you're finding that you are staying in dorsal vagal immobility all the time, you need to talk to a mental health professional, right? Now, if you are managing your stress well and you are not in the realm of needing a mental health professional, you can also get the support and guidance of a life coach like me. You can join communities that provide that support for you. You can connect with women or moms like you who, are looking for that co-regulation and looking for that connection. So I really think that when we can look at how to care for our nervous system and really practice that, we can start to see that we're able to self-regulate better, and therefore we can help our kids co-regulate better. The last thing that I wanted to share with you is ways in which you can also just like connect with your own nervous system and start to pay attention to what state you're in. And I think this is important. It's obviously a little still more sciencey, but I think it's important for us to even learn how to do that. I feel like we don't do enough of that, like learning how do I even listen to my nervous system. So one of the tips that Deb Dana offers is the idea of tuning in, taking in, and tending to. So one of the ways we nourish our nervous system is by being able to like tune in and take the experiences of connecting and listening to our nervous system, and then tend to by using actions that is based on what we have heard our nervous system telling us and what our nervous system has offered us as feedback. So I just want you to like take 1 minute. If you're driving, please don't do it. But if you can just pause for 1 minute, I want you to like tune in and notice what state you're in. Tune into the flavor of that state. So are you in dorsal vagal immobilization, or you feeling like inactive and you might be feeling grief, numbness, denial, absence of joy, feeling stuck? Just tune in. Or are you in sympathetic? Are you feeling agitated? Are you feeling fearful? Are you feeling anxious? That is sympathetic. Or are you in ventral vagal, right? Are you feeling safe? Are you feeling calm? Are you feeling like you can interact with the world around you? That's ventral vagal. Another way to think about these 3 circuits is, are you in ventral vagal, which is social engagement system, right? Are you feeling safe connection, calm, regulated, you're in a healthy balance, you're resourced and you're resourceful? Or are you in sympathetic? You are noticing cues of threat or danger in the environment. You are feeling that you're under chronic stress or anxiety. Your fight or flight response is activated, and you're noticing that you have a lot of conflict in your relationship. And then at the bottom of the ladder is the immobilization of dorsal vagal, and you're feeling like you're under threat. You're feeling like you should shut down or collapse, despair or helplessness. And you're noticing that you're practicing unhealthy coping behaviors such as drinking, overeating, such the like. This is just tuning in and tune into the flavor of the state that you're in. Then the second thing is take in. What are the cues of safety or danger that you're finding in your environment? What information is your neuroception sending you? Right? Are you finding that like you're paying attention to people's facial expressions? Are you feeling some sort of threat, or are you feeling like, you're going to get in a conflict? Just tune into that and take it in. Number 3 is now tending to, right? So you've collected this data, right? And now the decision is, what action are you going to take to move you towards the safety and regulation of your ventral vagal system, right? Because if you're in sympathetic, right, or if you are in dorsal vagal, our goal is to move up the ladder to anchor you in safety and to anchor you there. So what does your nervous system need right now to feel nourished in the moment? So as you've gathered their information, now you are going to create something to do so that your brain is on the same page as your autonomic nervous system. So we want to make sure that we tune in and take in, because if we don't have our brain and our nervous system in the same space, our intentions, even though they're in good intentions to get us into ventral vagal safety, they can actually, instead of creating safety, they can stretch your autonomic nervous system. So the third thing is, when we set that intention, is it going to bring the right degree of challenge, right? We don't want to like overdo it. What we want to ask ourselves is, how often do we want to tune in, take in, and tend to? Do we want to do it once a day? Do we want to do it twice a day? I just want you to like write your intention of how you often you want to do it and see how your nervous system reacts to that. If your nervous system is giving you a hell yes, it's in ventral vagal safety, right? Then that's good. If your nervous system is saying that's going to be too much and it's going to make me anxious and it's unrealistic and I already don't want to do it, then it's time to listen and go back to the drawing board and decide that you're going to find something that feels safer, right? Or if your dorsal vagal is like, this is unrealistic, this is hopeless, how are we going to go for a walk? We have too much to do. Then just notice that and go back to the drawing board and pick something that feels safe and anchored. And you can review this plan and revise it any way that you want to, but it's you partnering with your nervous system and creating this brain-body collaboration. As life obviously comes and goes, like this intention may be affected by that, but just like notice your ability to follow through on your plan to like tend to yourself, and does it feel safe? Does it feel practical? And are you being flexible about it, right? Because that's the other thing. Sometimes we are like, hey, I got to do it and I got to do it perfectly. You don't have to do it perfectly. What I wanted to say towards the end of this is work that you obviously can do by yourself, and it's work that's engaging for yourself. But one of the reasons I am so passionate about the Smart Mama Club that I have just launched is that I wanted to be part of a practice that we do in community. And there's a quote by John Muir, and he says, when we try to pick out anything by itself, we find it hitched to everything else in the universe. And so in creating community, I want us to create that co-regulation, create that community in the Smart Mama Club, that we can be connected to other humans and co-regulate with them and create a safe space for all of us. So we are going to be doing a lot of nervous system regulation work in the Smart Mama Club, because I think this work is so important. And I think it, like, if we can do it in community, it creates a space for us to then show up and co-regulate and then go out in the world and have such a good sense and clear sense of what co-regulation looks and feels like, that we can then help our children and help our partners and help the people around us to co-regulate. So I want us to have that connection in the community. So if this is something that you feel excited about and interested in, I am going to link the information on the Smart Mama Club in the show notes. This is going to be a membership. You can join for a year at a discount, or you can join monthly. It's $99 a month at this time, as of the time I'm recording, which is March of 2023. It might change, but for now it's $99 a month. And in the Smart Mama Club, you will get a module of the month. And the way I break down the module of the month is that every week you will get a module, and it's going to be available also in audio, because that's how my mom's like things to go, right? But it's also going to be available as a video course with a workbook. We are going to go deep into the work, and you're going to get your module every Monday. You have actionable steps for, the week. And then twice a month, we're going to meet on a group coaching call, and you can bring whatever you want to bring to coaching, whether it's on the module of the month, whether it is you're struggling with your toddler, or you and your husband are yelling at each other and you're feeling overwhelmed. Whatever it is, you can bring that to coaching, and it's a group coaching format. One of the beauties of group coaching is that sometimes you yourself don't have to be the person that asks the question, but you get the answer you might be needing in your own life. So that is why I'm excited to bring group coaching into this membership, because I feel like it's truly, truly impactful to be in a room with other women who are going through the same motherhood, marriage, relationship challenges as you are, and you can learn from each other in a safe space. I am so determined to create that community for ourselves, for us, for all of us. So the third thing is that, again, you will get a private podcast that you can listen to, and, you will have access to a Facebook group. You can come and ask your questions on the Facebook group, get-togethers and meetups. I really want this to be a community where you feel safe, you feel anchored, because this is the benefit of anchoring in ventrovagal, right? Our physical well-being improves when we regulate our nervous system. We feel an improvement in the way we engage with people and connect with the world. And it starts little. And so I want to create a space in which we can come and celebrate those wins. You can come and say, oh my God, I have such better awareness of my nervous system this week, and I didn't yell at my husband, and I let my toddler have their feelings, and I didn't make it mean anything about me. And so that is really my passion for the Smart Mama Club. And I would love, 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 love for you to join and be in the room where it happens and just create that ventrovagal safety co-regulation with all of us. When we feel safely connected in social engagement system of ventrovagal safety, we are resourced and resourceful. And so I want to create a container in which both are truly available. So we're going to be spending a lot of time dealing with our nervous system, learning how to self-regulate, putting this work into practice. Like I said, I have spent some time learning just like different modalities, somatic theory, and I completed a course in somatic stress release. I am starting a mind-body coaching certification. And I'm also in the process of a somatic attachment theory course. And so I want to distill this information in a way that makes sense for all of us, and we build that community with that in mind. So our first group coaching call, we changed the dates on this, but our first group coaching call is going to be on Monday, April 10th, right? So the first module will launch April 3rd. Our first group coaching call will be Monday, April 10th, 2023. And it's going to be at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. And we'll just be talking about the introduction to the membership. Mindset is our first module, really understanding how our brain works and how to start working on our mindset. So this is just my invitation to you to join us in the Mom Club. I cannot wait to have you in there. And if you have any questions about any of this stuff, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. hello@stethoscopes2swaddles.com. I'm excited to just like be able to share this work with you. If you are feeling stuck in any of this work and you're just like, Shiro, I'm trying this like self-regulation, it's not working, message me. I'll give you some tips that apply to you, right? The goal of intentional nervous system regulation is to do something that works for you. So we're going to spend a lot of time doing that in the Mom Club, and I want to offer that to you as a resource. So have a great rest of your week. I hope to talk to you next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as usual, you're doing a great job, Mama. And please reach out, email me, message me on Facebook, social media, wherever you need to. And I'm happy to support you. Have a great day. I'm Shira Bergbauer, and you've been listening to the Stethoscopes to Swaddles podcast. New episodes are out every Monday. These episodes are created by me, Shira Bergbauer, and produced by Cassidy Mitchell. If you enjoyed this show or found it helpful, please rate it and review us on Apple Podcasts. If the concepts I share on this podcast resonate with you, or you're ready to change your relationships and mindset, I can help you. If you'd like in-depth, personalized support, I'd love to invite you to apply for my Life and Mindset coaching program. Just imagine you and I every week working together as I teach you the tools to up-level your life. To book your free 1-hour consultation call, go to www.stethoscopes2swaddles.com/consultation. You're doing a great job, Mama. Have a great week. Bye now.